Clara Simmons runs. Her bare feet bleed against the muddy road. Rain pounds her back like fists. Behind her, Virgil's voice echoes in her skull. "You belong to this family now." She stumbles, falls. The floodwater rises around her ankles. She doesn't get up. She's done running. Then hands grip her shoulders. A man's voice cuts through the thunder. "Not here. Not on my land." She fights him, screams, but he doesn't let go. "Easy now," he says. "I ain't him. I ain't whoever you're running from." Subscribe to our channel and follow Clara's story to the very end. Comment the city you're watching from. Let us see how far her journey has traveled. The woman weighed nothing. Elijah Garrett carried her across the yard, rain hammering his shoulders, her head lolling against his chest. She'd stopped fighting 2 minutes back. That worried him more than the screaming had. He kicked the cabin door open. Inside, the hearth still glowed from the fire he'd banked before checking the horses. He laid her on the floor near the warmth. Her lips were blue. Her whole body shook like something was trying to rattle loose from inside her. Ma'am, can you hear me?" Nothing. Just that terrible shaking. Elijah moved fast. He grabbed the quilt from his mother's trunk, the one she'd made the winter before she died, and stripped the woman's soaked shawl away. Her dress clung to her like a second skin, cold and heavy. He hesitated. "Forgive me," he muttered, more to himself than to her. He worked quickly, keeping his eyes on the task rather than the woman. Changed her into his mother's old nightgown. Wrapped her in the quilt. Built the fire higher until sweat ran down his own face. Then he sat back on his heels and watched her breathe. Shallow. Too fast. But breathing. "Who are you?" he asked the empty room. "What drove you out in this—" The storm answered with thunder that shook the walls. She woke fighting. Her fist caught him across the jaw before he could react. Elijah grabbed her wrists, held them firm, but not cruel. Easy now. You're safe. Let go of me." Her voice cracked like old leather. "Don't touch me. I ain't hurting you. Look at me. Look." She did. Wild eyes, fever bright, searched his face. Whatever she saw there made her stop struggling. But she didn't relax. Not even close. "Where am I?" "My cabin. Found you in my barn about 3 hours back, half drowned and frozen through." "Your barn?" She looked around, confused. I was running. The road flooded and She tried to sit up. Failed. Her arms gave out, and she collapsed back against the pillow. "Don't," Elijah said. "You got a fever. Been shaking since I brought you in. I have to go. Go where storm's been raging for 6 hours. Roads underwater. Creek took out the bridge yesterday morning." Her face crumpled. Just for a second. Then she pulled it back together, hard and tight. "How long until I can leave?" 3 days, maybe 4 if the rain keeps up." "I can't stay here 3 days. "Don't see you got much choice, ma'am." She closed her eyes. Her throat worked, swallowing something that might have been a sob. "He'll find me." Elijah went still. "Who'll find you?" She didn't answer. "Ma'am, who's looking for you?" "Nobody." She turned her face away. "Nobody. Forget I said anything." He didn't push. He'd learned a long time ago that some stories came out only when they were ready. Force them, and they'd retreat deeper. He stood. "I'm gonna make some broth. You need to eat something or that fever's gonna get worse." "Why are you helping me?" The question stopped him at the stove. He considered it. "Because you needed help," he said finally. "That's reason enough. You don't know me. Don't know what I am, what I've done. Don't care what you've done." He set the pot on the stove. "Care what you need right now. And right now, you need food, warmth, and rest. Everything else can wait." She was quiet for a long moment. Then so soft, he almost missed it. "Thank you." He didn't turn around. "Don't thank me yet. My cooking's liable to finish what the storm started. A sound came from behind him, small, strangled. It took him a second to realize she was laughing. Her name was Clara. She told him that much when he brought the broth. Sat on the edge of the bed, his bed the only one in the cabin, and spooned it between her lips like she was a child. Clara, he repeated. Got a last name, Clara. She hesitated. Simmons, Clara Simmons. Simmons. He rolled it around. Any relation to Virgil Simmons? Got a spread down past Cedar Creek. Her whole body went rigid. The spoon clattered against the bowl. I see, Elijah said quietly. You know him. Know of him. Bought a horse from his outfit 2 years back. He set the bowl aside. He's the one you're running from. It wasn't a question. Clara's hands twisted in the quilt. His mother's quilt, the one with the blue squares and the careful stitching. She gripped it like it could anchor her to something solid. My husband was his brother, she whispered. Daniel. He died 14 months ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. Daniel was kind. Distant, but kind. We had a good enough life. Her voice hardened. But after he died, Virgil came to the house. Said I owed debts. Funeral costs. Land payments Daniel had missed. Did you... There weren't any debts. She looked at him directly for the first time. Gray blue eyes sharp with old anger. I checked every paper Daniel left behind. There was nothing. Virgil made it up. Why would he do that? She laughed, bitter and broken. Because he wanted me. Said I was family property now. Said a widow needed a man to guide her. That it was proper. She spat the word like poison. When I refused, he told the whole town I was wicked. That I'd been improper with other men. That I'd stolen money from the family. Elijah's jaw tightened. They believed him. He's a deacon at the church, respected, wealthy. Her voice dropped. I'm a childless widow who didn't weep enough at her husband's funeral. Who do you think they believed? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. So you ran. He was coming for me tonight. Had it planned. She shuddered. I heard him tell his foreman. Said he'd teach me my place one way or another. So I waited until dark, and I ran. Into a flood, in the middle of the night, with no shoes. I didn't care if I died. She met his eyes. I still don't know if I do. Something cracked inside Elijah's chest, an old wound barely healed tearing open. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. I was ready to let the river take me. Would have if you hadn't. I said don't. His voice came out harder than he meant. He forced it softer. Don't say that. Not in this house. She stared at him, saw something in his face that made her stop arguing. You've lost someone, she said, not a question. My sister, 6 years back. The fever. Scarlet fever. I couldn't afford the doctor. He stood abruptly, moved to the window where rain streaked the glass. Was too proud to ask for help. By the time I swallowed my pride, she was gone. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was my fault. I own that. He turned back to her. But I made a promise to myself that night. I wouldn't let another soul die because I was too stubborn or too scared to act. Not if I could help it. He crossed back to the bed, knelt down so they were eye level. Clara Simmons, I don't care what Virgil says you are. I don't care what that town thinks. You're under my roof now. That means you're under my protection. Nobody's taking you anywhere you don't choose to go. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. You don't even know me. I know you survived a powerful man's lies. I know you ran through a flood in the dark with nothing but the clothes on your back. I know you're still breathing when everything in you wanted to stop. He held her gaze. That tells me more than most people show in a lifetime. She reached out. Her fingers brushed his hand, cold, still trembling. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you risk this for a stranger?" "Because someone should have done it for Nora, and no one did." He covered her hand with his. "Rest now. Storm's gonna last a while. We got time to figure out the rest." She slept in fits and starts. The fever climbed through the night. Elijah sat in his chair by the fire, listening to her murmur in her sleep. Sometimes she called out names. Daniel. Virgil. Once a woman's name, Ruth. Mostly she said no. No over and over. No. Please. No. Each one drove a nail deeper into his chest. Around midnight, she thrashed so hard she nearly threw herself off the bed. He crossed to her, pressed her shoulders gently back. "Can't go back," she gasped, eyes still closed, still dreaming. "Said I was wicked. His property now. Nobody believes me. Nobody. I believe you." He didn't know if she heard him, but she stilled. Her breathing evened. He tucked the quilt tighter around her. His mother's quilt. The last thing his mother had made before the coughing took her. "Keep her safe," he murmured to no one. To the quilt. To whatever might be listening. "She's had enough. Keep her safe." Dawn came gray and wet. The rain hadn't stopped, but it had slowed. Elijah made coffee, checked on the horses through the window, and tried not to think about what he'd gotten himself into. Virgil Simmons was a powerful man, connected, the kind of man who could make life very difficult for anyone who crossed him. And Elijah had just put himself directly in the man's path. He should care about that, should be weighing the risks, calculating the costs. He didn't. He looked at Clara still sleeping, and felt something he hadn't felt in 6 years. Something that frightened him more than any powerful man ever could. Purpose. She stirred. Her eyes opened clearer than they'd been the night before. The fever had broken. She saw him watching, and tensed. "Easy," he said. "It's just me. Coffee's on. How do you take it?" "You don't have to. Didn't ask if I had to. Asked how you take it." A pause. Then, "Black. If you have any honey, just a little." "Got honey. Bees keep to the east field." He poured added honey, brought it to her. "Careful. It's hot." She wrapped both hands around the cup, held it like it was precious, like she'd forgotten what it felt like to be given something without strings attached. "What's your name?" she asked. "You never told me." "Elijah. Elijah Garrett." "Elijah." She tested it. "Thank you, Elijah. For last night. For everything." "Don't thank me yet." He pulled his chair closer, sat down with his own coffee. "Storm's gonna clear in a few days. When it does, Virgil's gonna come looking. Man like that doesn't lose what he thinks belongs to him." "I know. So we got 2 choices. One, you run again. I give you a horse supplies, point you toward San Antonio. You disappear. And the second choice," he met her eyes. "We stay. Face him together. Make him prove his lies in front of the whole damn town." Clara's hands tightened on the cup. "You'd do that. Stand against a man like Virgil, for someone you just met. Already told you, you're under my protection now." He set his coffee down. "But Clara, if we do this, it won't be easy. He'll fight dirty. He'll make sure the whole county knows you've been here alone with me. They'll talk. They'll say terrible things about both of us." "Let them talk." The fierceness in her voice surprised him. "I spent 14 months being destroyed by whispers," she said. "Being crushed by what people thought, what they believed." She sat up straighter. "I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. If Virgil wants a fight, he can have one." Something shifted in Elijah's chest. That old locked door, the one he'd kept shut since Nora died, cracked open just a little. "All right then." He extended his hand. "Partners." She looked at his hand, then at his face, then she took it. Partners. Her grip was stronger than he expected, stronger than she looked. Outside, the rain drummed steady against the roof. Inside, two strangers bound themselves together against a storm far worse than weather. Neither of them knew what was coming, but neither of them was alone anymore, and that made all the difference. 3 days passed. Clara learned things about Elijah Garrett in those 3 days. Learned that he woke before dawn and didn't need coffee to function. Learned that he talked to his horses like they were old friends. Learned that he carved small things when his hands needed occupation. A wooden spoon, a figure of a bird, nothing useful, but everything careful. She learned that he didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. That scared her more than anything Virgil had ever done. On the morning of the second day, she found him at the stove struggling with biscuits that looked like they'd been through a war. "You're going to poison us both," she said from the doorway. He turned. Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe pleasure, before he shuddered it away. "Didn't know you were up. Hard to sleep when I can smell something burning." She crossed to him, took the spoon from his hand. "Move. This is my kitchen. And these are my biscuits now. Sit down." He sat. Clara worked quickly, scraping the ruined dough into the waste bin, starting fresh. Her hands remembered the motions even when her mind wandered. Mix fold cut. Simple. Clean. "You always this bossy?" Elijah asked. "You always this bad at cooking? Managed fine for 6 years. Managed being the key word." She slid the biscuits into the oven. There, 20 minutes. She turned to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "What?" "Nothing." He looked away. "Just been a while since someone else was in this kitchen. That's all." Clara felt something tighten in her chest. She ignored it. "Well, get used to it. If I'm staying 3 more days, I'm not eating charcoal." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Yes, ma'am." They ate breakfast in silence that wasn't uncomfortable. Clara watched the rain through the window, listened to it drum against the roof. "Does it always rain like this here?" "June storms can last a week sometimes. Flash floods come fast. Creek rises 10 feet in an hour if the conditions are right." "Is that what happened to the bridge?" "Swept it clean away. Old timber couldn't hold against that kind of water." He pushed back from the table. "Need to check the horses. You rest." "I've rested enough." "Clara, I've been lying in that bed for 2 days. I need to move. Need to do something." She stood. "Let me help." He studied her. She held his gaze, refusing to back down. "Fine," he said finally. "But you wear my boots. Ground's nothing but mud out there." His boots were 3 sizes too big. She stuffed rags in the toes and followed him out anyway. The barn was warm, filled with the smell of hay and horse and leather. 2 horses stood in their stalls, a gray mare and a chestnut gelding. Both turned their heads when Elijah entered. "Morning, ladies," he said. Then to Clara, "The gray's Molly, chestnut's Jack. They don't bite, but Jack'll try to pick your pockets if you're not careful." Clara approached Molly slowly. The mare snuffled at her hand breath, warm and soft. "She's beautiful." "She knows it. Vainest horse I ever owned." He grabbed a pitchfork. "You know how to muck a stall?" "I was a rancher's wife." "Right." He handed her the fork. "I'll do Jack. You take Molly. She'll go easy on you." They worked side by side. Clara's arms ached. Her legs protested. But the work felt good. Honest. Physical in a way that pushed everything else out of her head. "You and Daniel," Elijah said after a while. "How'd you meet?" Clara didn't stop shoveling. "His horse threw a shoe outside my father's blacksmith shop. I was 16. He was 23. Young to marry. 17 when we wed. Father thought it was a good match. Daniel had land, prospects." She leaned on the fork. "I thought I loved him. Maybe I did. Hard to remember now what that felt like." "What was he like?" "Kind, quiet, gone a lot working the cattle. She resumed shoveling. We had 8 years together. Never fought, never raised our voices. But Elijah, I don't think I ever really knew him. And I don't think he wanted to know me. Lonely way to live. It was. I didn't realize how lonely until he was gone. She threw a forkful of hay harder than necessary. Virgil told the town I didn't grieve right. Said I should have wept more. Worn black longer. Been more broken. And you weren't broken. I was sad. I was lost. But no, I wasn't broken. She met his eyes. They hated me for it. Decided I must not have loved Daniel at all. That's when the whispers started. Elijah was quiet for a long moment. People got a lot of opinions about how others should feel, he said finally. Most of them don't know a damn thing about grief. No, they don't. He nodded slowly. Something passed between them, understanding maybe. Recognition. Come on, he said. Still got the tack to oil. They worked through the morning. By noon, Clara's muscles screamed and she was covered in mud and horse sweat. She'd never felt more alive. That afternoon, the rain slowed to a drizzle. Clara stood at the window watching the gray sky. Behind her, Elijah whittled by the fire. The scrape of his knife against wood had become familiar, almost comforting. Can I ask you something? She said. You can ask. Your sister, Nora. She turned to face him. What was she like? His hands stilled on the wood. You don't have to. She laughed, he said quietly. At everything. Drove Ma crazy sometimes, but she couldn't help it. World struck her as funny more often than not. He resumed carving, slower now. She was 17 when the fever came. I was 28, old enough to know better, old enough to swallow my pride and ask for help. But you didn't. No, I didn't. The knife slipped. He cursed, softly examined his thumb. A thin line of blood welled up. Doctor wanted $10 to ride out. I had 8. Could have borrowed the rest from the Hendersons they offered, but I thought I could handle it myself. Thought she'd pull through on her own. Clara crossed to him. Took his hand before he could pull away. The cut was shallow, barely worth noting. She didn't pull through, she said softly. Took her 4 days to die. 4 days of watching her burn up. 4 days of knowing I could have done something and didn't. His voice roughened. By the time I broke down and borrowed that money, it was too late. Doctor came, took one look at her, and told me to say my goodbyes. Elijah. I held her hand while she went. She was so small at the end. The fever had eaten her down to nothing. He pulled his hand from Clara's grip. I buried her next to Ma. Then I came back here, and I didn't leave for 2 years. Not for anything. Not for anyone. That's why you live alone. I live alone because I don't trust myself with people I care about. He met her eyes. The rawness there made her catch her breath. Everyone I've loved has died. Ma, Pa, Nora. I figured maybe I was the common element. Maybe I was the poison. You're not poison. You don't know that. I know you pulled me out of a flood when you could have let me drown. I know you've given me food and shelter and asked nothing in return. She knelt in front of him, forced him to look at her. Whatever you think you are, Elijah Garrett, you're wrong. He stared at her. Something shifted in the air between them. Something dangerous. Clara felt it pulling at her, drawing her forward. She stood abruptly, stepped back. I should the biscuits, from this morning. There are a few left. I could... Clara. She stopped. Thank you, he said quietly. For listening. She didn't trust herself to answer, just nodded and fled to the kitchen, heart pounding for reasons she didn't want to name. The fourth morning broke clear. Clara woke to silence, no rain drumming on the roof, no thunder rolling in the distance, just birdsong and stillness. She found Elijah on the porch, coffee in hand, staring at the sky. Storm's past, she said. For now, might get another round tonight, but the worst is over. What about the bridge? Won't be rebuilt for a week at least. But a man on horseback could ford the creek now if he knew the right crossing. He glanced at her. Someone could come looking. Clara's stomach dropped. When? Today, tomorrow. Depends on how fast word travels. He set down his coffee. We need to talk about what happens next. I know what happens next. Virgil sends his men. They drag me back. I disappear. Her voice hardened. Unless I run first. That's one option. What's the other? You already said it. Face him in town. But Elijah, you don't understand what he's like. He has the sheriff in his pocket. The judge owes him money. Half the businessmen in town depend on his patronage. I can't win against that. Not alone, but you're not alone anymore. One man against all of Virgil Simmons' power. That's not courage, that's suicide. Maybe. He turned to face her fully. But I've been dying slowly for 6 years, Clara. Living in this cabin, talking to horses, waiting for nothing. If I'm gonna go out, might as well be for something that matters. I'm not worth dying for. That ain't for you to decide. They stared at each other. Clara felt tears prickling at her eyes and blinked them back furiously. Why? She demanded. Why do you care what happens to me? Because you make me remember what it feels like to give a damn. He stepped closer. Because for the first time in 6 years, I wake up and actually want to see what the day brings. Because... He stopped, swallowed. Because why, Elijah? Because when I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for. And I ain't seen that in a long, long time. Clara's breath caught. Before she could respond, a sound cut through the morning hoofbeats. Fast. Getting closer. Elijah's whole body changed. He went from soft to hard in an instant, hand dropping to the rifle, leaning against the porch rail. Get inside. Elijah? Now Clara. And don't come out until I say. She didn't argue. Something in his voice killed the protest in her throat. She retreated into the cabin, pressed herself against the wall by the window and watched. A rider emerged from the tree line. Big man. Heavy set. Riding a black horse that had been pushed hard. Clara's blood went cold. Emmett Holloway. Virgil's foreman. The man who'd held her down while Virgil went through Daniel's papers. The man who'd laughed when she fought. She pressed her hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. Emmett reined up 20 feet from the porch. His eyes swept the property, landed on Elijah. Morning. Morning. Elijah didn't move from the porch rail. Help you with something. Might be, looking for a woman. Widow, brown hair, gray eyes. Goes by Clara Simmons. Word is she might have come this way. That's so. Storm was bad. Virgil's worried about her. She ain't been well since her husband died. Mine's gone soft if you take my meaning. Emmett smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. He just wants to make sure she's safe. Kind of him. He's a good man. Christian man. Taking care of his dead brother's widow is the right thing to do. Elijah shifted his weight. His hand didn't leave the rifle. What's this woman look like again? Told you. Brown hair, gray eyes. Pretty enough, I reckon. About ya high. Emmett gestured. Might have been in a bad way. Storm caught a lot of folks off guard. Haven't seen anyone matching that description. Emmett's smile faded. That right. That's right. Mind if I take a look around, just to be thorough? I do mind, actually. The two men stared at each other. The air crackled with tension. Mr. Garrett, is it? Emmett said slowly. Elijah Garrett. You bought a horse from us a few years back. I remember. Good stock. Fair price. Emmett shifted in his saddle. Virgil Simmons is a powerful man in these parts. Got a lot of friends. Man could do worse than having him as an ally. Could do better, too. Emmett's expression hardened. You sure you ain't seen this woman? I'm sure. Because if you were lying, if you were harboring her, that would be a problem. A legal problem. She took money from the family, see? $50. Virgil filed charges with the sheriff. Did he now? He did. Sheriff's got a warrant and everything. Emmett leaned forward. So I'll ask you one more time. Have you seen Clara Simmons? Elijah was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his rifle, held it loosely, not pointed at Emmett, but not pointed away either. "Mister, I told you I ain't seen anyone. Now I'm telling you to get off my property. You can relay that to Virgil Simmons, along with a message from me." "What message would that be?" "His business ain't welcome here. Not now, not ever. If he sends anyone else looking for shadows, they'll find more than they bargained for." Emmett's face went red. "You're making a mistake." "Wouldn't be my first. Virgil won't forget this. I'm counting on it." Elijah raised the rifle slightly. "Now get. Before I decide this conversation's gone on long enough." For a moment, Clara was certain Emmett would push it. His hand twitched toward his hip, toward his gun. Then he seemed to think better of it. He gathered his reins, wheeled his horse. "This ain't over, Garrett." "Didn't figure it was." Emmett spurred his horse and rode hard back toward the tree line. Clara didn't move until the hoofbeats faded to nothing. Elijah came inside. His face was calm, but his hands shook slightly as he set the rifle down. "He'll be back," Clara said. "With more men. With the sheriff." "I know. You should have let me go, told him I was here. Ended this." "No. Elijah, I'm not worth—" "You keep saying that." He turned on her, and for the first time, she saw real anger in his eyes. "You keep telling me what you're not worth. But you're wrong, Clara. You're wrong about all of it. You don't know me. I know you survived Virgil Simmons. I know you ran into a flood rather than submit to a man who wanted to own you. I know you've got more courage in your little finger than most men got in their whole bodies." He crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. "Stop telling me you're not worth fighting for. Start asking yourself why you believe it." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Because everyone else believes it. Because the whole town looked at me and decided I was wicked. Because Virgil said, Virgil is a liar and a predator. He saw something good and tried to break it. That ain't your failing, Clara. That's his." A sob broke loose from her chest, then another. Before she knew what was happening, she was crying, really crying for the first time since Daniel's funeral. All the grief she'd swallowed, all the rage she'd buried, all the terror she'd tried to outrun. It came pouring out of her like floodwater. Elijah pulled her against his chest, held her while she shook. "Let it out," he murmured. "All of it. I've got you." She cried until she had nothing left. Until she was empty and exhausted, and somehow lighter than she'd been in months. When she finally pulled back, his shirt was soaked with her tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Don't apologize." He cupped her face in his rough hands. "Don't ever apologize for being human." She looked up at him, at his weathered face and kind eyes and the stubborn set of his jaw. This man, who had lost everything and still opened his door to a stranger. This man who stood against power because he believed in something bigger than survival. She kissed him. It was brief, barely more than a brush of lips, but it sent shockwaves through both of them. When she pulled back, Elijah stared at her like she'd just told him the sky was green. "Clara?" "I know." She stepped back, touching her lips. "I know. I shouldn't have. Clara. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. The emotion and you being so kind and Clara." He caught her hand, drew her back. "Stop apologizing." And then he kissed her. Not brief this time, not gentle. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air. Like he'd been starving for years, and she was the first meal he'd seen. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. "Well, she said shakily. "That was—" "Yeah." He rested his forehead against hers. "It was." "What do we do now?" "Now." He pulled back and his expression sobered. "Now we prepare. Emmett will be back and he won't be alone. Virgil knows where you are. The question is what he'll do about it. He'll come himself, eventually. Virgil doesn't like anyone else handling his business. Then we'll be ready for him. Elijah squeezed her hands. But Clara, I need you to understand something. Once we do this, once we fight, there's no going back. Whatever life you had before, it's over. Whatever chance you had at being left alone, that's gone too. I never had a chance at being left alone. Virgil made sure of that. Then what do you want? If we win, if we beat him, what do you want your life to look like? Clara thought about it. Really thought. I want to stop running, she said finally. I want to wake up without fear. I want to build something that's mine, not inherited, not given, but mine. She looked at him. I want a chance to figure out who I am when I'm not just surviving. Elijah nodded slowly. That's a good thing to want. What about you? What do you want? He was quiet for a long moment. I want to stop punishing myself, he said at last. I want to believe I deserve more than 4 walls and silence. I want... He stopped. Started again. I want to see what this could be, you and me, if we let it. Is that possible? In the middle of all this? I don't know, but I'd like to find out. She squeezed his hands. Then we fight. Together. Whatever comes. Together. The word hung between them like a promise. Outside, the clouds were gathering again, another storm coming. But this time, Clara didn't feel the dread she'd felt before. She had someone standing beside her now, and that made all the difference. That evening, they sat on the porch and watched the sunset. Clara leaned against Elijah's shoulder, his arm wrapped around her warm and solid. Tell me about the quilt, she said. What about it? The one you wrapped me in. The one on the bed. There's a story there, I can tell. He was quiet for a moment. My mom made it. Last winter of her life. She was already sick, but she wouldn't stop sewing. Said she wanted to leave something behind. Something that would last. It's beautiful. It's got pieces of everything we were. That blue Nora's Sunday dress. The red my father's work shirt. The white Ma's wedding gown. His voice thickened. She stitched us all together. Said as long as that quilt existed, we'd never really be gone. Clara's throat tightened. When I wrapped you in it, Elijah continued, I thought about what Ma would say. She'd tell me I was doing right. She'd tell me that quilt was meant for exactly this, for keeping someone safe when they needed it most. Elijah. You've got holes in you, Clara. I can see them. Places where people tore chunks out and left you bleeding. He turned to look at her. But holes can be mended. That's what quilts are for, taking broken pieces and making something whole. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. I've got holes too, he said. Deep ones. Nora-shaped and Ma-shaped and 6 years of silence shaped. I ain't whole. I ain't fixed. But maybe we could fix each other, Clara finished. Maybe we could try. She kissed him again, softer this time. A promise instead of an explosion. When they pulled apart, Elijah's eyes were wet too. Storm's coming, he said. I know. Not just rain, the real storm. Virgil. I know that too. Are you scared? Clara considered the question. Yes, she admitted. But I'm more scared of going back to what I was. Of running forever. Of never having anything worth fighting for. She took his hand. You're worth fighting for, Elijah. This is worth fighting for. Then that's what we'll do. He stood, pulled her up with him. Tomorrow I'll ride to town. Talk to some folks. Find out what Virgil's been saying, what he's planning. I'll come with you. No, not yet. If I show up alone, I can feel things out. Learn who might be on our side and who won't. But if you come, they'll close ranks around Virgil. Exactly. We need to be smart about this. Strategic. Clara didn't like it, but she understood. Be careful, she said. Virgil has eyes everywhere. I know how to be invisible when I need to be. He kissed her forehead. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. She went inside, laid down on the bed, wrapped herself in the quilt. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm was coming. But so was the dawn, and for the first time in 14 months, Clara Simmons believed she might live to see it. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. Elijah rode out at first light. Clara watched him disappear into the trees, her heart lodged somewhere in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to follow, to not let him face this alone. But he was right. Strategy mattered now. One wrong move, and Virgil would crush them both. She spent the morning working. Anything to keep her hands busy. She milked the cow, fed the horses, scrubbed the cabin floor until her knees ached. But nothing quieted the fear churning in her gut. What if Virgil had men waiting? What if Elijah never came back? By noon, she couldn't stand it anymore. She paced the porch like a caged animal, scanning the tree line for any sign of movement. Nothing. Nothing. Then hoofbeats. Clara's hand found the rifle Elijah had left her. She raised it, sighted down the barrel. A rider emerged. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Then she saw the gray mare. Molly. Elijah. She lowered the rifle legs, shaking with relief. He dismounted fast, face grim. "What happened?" Clara demanded. "What did you find out?" "Virgil's been busy." Elijah led Molly toward the barn. Clara followed. "He's told half the county you're dangerous. Said you attacked him with a knife before you ran. Said you're touched in the head, grief mad." "That's a lie." "I know it's a lie, but Clara, they believe him. The sheriff, the shopkeepers, the church folk. He's got them convinced you're a threat." Clara felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. "So it's over, before it even started?" "No." Elijah stopped, turned to face her. "Not everyone believes him. I talked to Ruth Perkins' widow out past Miller's Creek. She got quiet when I mentioned your name. Too quiet. There's something there." "Ruth?" Clara frowned. "I barely know her. We've spoken maybe twice." "That's what I thought. But she knows something. I could see it in her face." He took Clara's hands. "There's a town meeting tomorrow. Church hall. Virgil called it himself. Says he wants to address concerns about public safety. He wants to turn the whole town against me. That's exactly what he wants, which is why we're going to be there." Clara's blood went cold. "Elijah." "We walk in together, heads high. You tell your truth in front of everyone. Let them see who you really are. And if they don't believe me, then we leave, start over somewhere else." His grip tightened. "But Clara, I think some of them will believe you. I think Virgil's played this game before, and some folks remember." "What if you're wrong?" "Then at least we tried. At least you stood up instead of running." He cupped her face. "You said you wanted to stop running. This is how." Clara closed her eyes. Terror and hope warred inside her. "All right," she whispered. "Tomorrow. We face him. Together. Kado. Together." The town meeting started at noon. Clara wore the only dress she had. Elijah's mother's old Sunday dress, altered to fit. Her hair was pinned back. The silver cross Elijah had found in his mother's trunk hung at her throat. She looked respectable. She looked like a proper widow. She felt like a woman walking to her own hanging. Elijah helped her down from the wagon. His hand found hers, squeezed once. "No matter what happens in there," he said quietly, "remember who you are. Don't let them take that." She nodded. Drew a breath. They walked into the church hall. The room was packed. 50 people, maybe more. Farmers, shopkeepers, wives, children. All of them turned to stare as Clara entered. The whispers started immediately. "That's her. Can't believe she'd show her face. Shameless." Clara kept her chin up, kept walking. At the front of the room, Virgil Simmons stood with the sheriff and 2 town councilmen. He wore his Sunday best, his silver hair combed back, his expression one of practiced concern. When he saw Clara, his mask slipped. Just for a second. Pure rage flashed in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by wounded righteousness. "Clara," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "thank God you're safe. We've been so worried." "Have you?" Clara's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Of course. Your family. After everything you've been through, losing Daniel, the grief, we only want to help you." "Help me?" Clara laughed. The sound was sharp, bitter. "Is that what you call it? Spreading lies about me, telling everyone I'm mad, threatening to have me arrested?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "My dear, I haven't spread any lies." Virgil's voice dripped with false concern. "I simply expressed worry about your state of mind. After the trauma of Daniel's death, my state of mind is fine. My state of mind has always been fine." Clara stepped forward. "What isn't fine is you claiming I owe debts that don't exist. What isn't fine is you telling this town I stole money I never touched. What isn't fine," her voice rose, "is you coming to my home and telling me I had to submit to you, that I was family property now, that you'd teach me my place." Gasps. Shocked whispers. Virgil's face reddened. "That's absurd. I never—" "You did. I have witnesses." "What witnesses?" "You lived alone. Daniel's been dead over a year. Who could possibly—" "Me." The voice came from the back of the room. Every head turned. Ruth Perkins stood in the doorway. She was small, gray-haired, dressed in widow's black. Her hands trembled, but her voice was clear. "I can witness." Virgil's expression flickered. Fear. Actual fear. "Ruth, this doesn't concern you." "It concerns me plenty." Ruth walked forward, the crowd parting before her. "It concerned me 3 years ago when Edna Walsh came to my door crying, when she told me what you'd done to her, what you'd said." Dead silence. "Edna Walsh was unstable," Virgil said quickly. "Everyone knew. Edna Walsh was a strong woman who ran from this town because you made her life impossible." Ruth turned to face the crowd. "She told me Virgil came to her after her husband died. Said she owed debts. Said she had to work them off. Sound familiar?" More murmurs. Louder now. "When she refused, he spread rumors. Said she'd been improper. Said she'd stolen money." Ruth's eyes found Clara. "Same story, different woman." "This is slander," Virgil snarled. "I'll have you arrested." "For what, telling the truth?" Ruth drew herself up. "I've been quiet 3 years. Watched Edna disappear. Told myself it wasn't my business." Her voice cracked. "I was wrong. I should have spoken up then. I'm speaking up now." Clara felt tears burning her eyes. Sheriff Tom Dawkins stepped forward. His face was troubled. "Virgil, these are serious allegations." "They're lies, both of them are." "Edna Walsh left town 3 years ago," the sheriff said slowly. "Never came back. Her family said she was scared of something, but they never knew what." He looked at Ruth. "You're saying it was Virgil." "I'm saying you should have investigated then. You should investigate now." The room erupted. Voices overlapping. Arguments breaking out. Some people shouting at Ruth, others demanding answers from Virgil. Clara felt Elijah's hand on her back, steadying her. "It's working," he murmured. "They're listening." But Virgil wasn't finished. "Enough." His voice cut through the chaos. The room went quiet. "You want to investigate, fine. Investigate. You'll find nothing because there's nothing to find." He pointed at Clara. "But while you're wasting time on baseless accusations, consider this. That woman has been living in Elijah Garrett's cabin for a week, alone, unmarried. What does that tell you about her character?" Heads turned, eyes narrowed. "He found me half dead in a flood," Clara shot back. "He saved my life." A convenient story, But who can verify it? No one saw you arrive. No one can prove you were in danger. Virgil smiled coldly. All we know for certain is that a widow of questionable reputation spent a week alone with an unmarried man. In my book, that speaks for itself. More whispers. Different tone now. Judgmental. Suspicious. Clara felt the tide shifting. I don't care what you think of me, she said, voice shaking. I don't care if every person in this room believes Virgil's lies. I know the truth. God knows the truth. That's enough for me. Is it enough when the sheriff arrests you for theft? When you spend years in prison while I... Virgil. Elijah's voice cut through like a blade. Shut your mouth. Virgil turned, sneering. Or what? Elijah stepped forward. His face was calm, but his eyes burned. Or, I'll tell everyone in this room about the land documents. The ones you forged after Daniel died. The ones that show you transferred property to yourself before the body was cold. Virgil went pale. That's ridiculous. I have no idea what you're... I talked to the clerk in Cedar Falls. Nice man. Remembers you bringing in papers to file. Papers with Daniel Simmons's signature. Elijah smiled thinly. Funny thing is, Daniel was already dead when those papers were dated. So either he signed them from the grave or someone committed fraud. The room went absolutely still. That's a misunderstanding, Virgil stammered. A clerical error. Then you won't mind the sheriff looking into it. Won't mind him comparing signatures. Won't mind explaining how a dead man's property ended up in your name 3 days after his funeral. Clara stared at Elijah. He hadn't told her about this. When had he found time to... The sheriff stepped toward Virgil. I think we need to have a conversation, down at my office. I'm a respected member of this community. You can't. I can and I will. Let's go, Virgil. 2 deputies moved forward. Virgil's face contorted with rage. This isn't over, he hissed at Clara. You think you've won. You haven't won anything. I'll destroy you. I'll destroy both of you. That's enough. The sheriff took Virgil's arm. Move. They led him out. The crowd parted, watching in stunned silence. Clara's knees buckled. Elijah caught her. Easy, I've got you. You didn't tell me. The documents... Didn't know if it would work. Didn't want to get your hopes up. He helped her to a bench. Ruth's the one who tipped me off. Said Edna had mentioned something about forged papers before she left. I just followed the trail. Clara looked at Ruth, who stood apart from the crowd, uncertain. Thank you, Clara called to her. Thank you for speaking up. Ruth's eyes glistened. Should have done it years ago. Maybe Edna would still be here. You did it now. That's what matters. The crowd began to disperse, but not everyone left hostile. Some nodded at Clara. A few even offered quiet words of support. Not forgiveness, not acceptance, but a start. Elijah helped Clara to her feet. Let's go home. Home. The word settled into her chest like warmth. Yes, she said. Let's go home. They didn't make it. An hour outside of town, they smelled it. Smoke, thick and black, rising above the trees. Clara's heart stopped. Elijah. He was already spurring the horses faster. The wagon bounced over rough ground, nearly throwing them both. Then they cleared the ridge and saw the barn engulfed in flames. No. Elijah leaped from the wagon before it fully stopped. The horses! Clara scrambled after him. Elijah, wait! But he was already running toward the inferno. Heat blasted outward, scorching. Flames climbed 30 feet high, consuming wood that had stood for 2 decades. Molly Jack! Elijah's voice cracked with anguish. A figure emerged from the side of the barn. Emmett Holloway. He held a torch, grinning. Virgil sends his regards. Elijah charged him. They collided hard, hit the ground, rolling. Emmett was bigger, heavier, but Elijah fought like a man possessed. Fists connected with flesh. Grunts and curses filled the air. Clara looked around frantically. The rifle. Where was the rifle? Still in the wagon. She ran for it. Her fingers closed around the stock just as Emmett threw Elijah off. Elijah hit the ground hard, dazed. Emmett drew his pistol. Been wanting to do this for a while, Garrett. Clara raised the rifle. Drop it. Emmett turned surprised. Then he laughed. You gonna shoot me, widow? You ever even fired that thing? I was a rancher's wife for 8 years. What do you think? His smile faltered. Drop the gun, Emmett. I won't ask again. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Emmett slowly lowered his pistol, set it on the ground. This ain't over, he said. Get on your horse and ride. Tell Virgil that if he sends anyone else, they won't ride home. Emmett's jaw tightened, but he moved to his horse, mounted. You'll regret this, he spat. Clara didn't flinch. I regret a lot of things. This won't be one of them. He rode away. Clara dropped the rifle, ran to Elijah. He was struggling to sit up, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. The horses. I don't know. A whinny cut through the roar of flames. They both turned. There, near the tree line, stood Molly and Jack, trembling, terrified, but alive. They got out, Clara breathed. They must have broken through before. Elijah made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He pulled Clara against him, held her tight. Behind them, the barn collapsed in a shower of sparks. Everything he'd built, everything his father had left him, gone. I'm sorry, Clara whispered. This is my fault. If I hadn't... No. He pulled back, gripped her face. This is Virgil's doing, not yours, never yours. You lost everything. I lost a building, wood and nails. His eyes searched hers. I didn't lose everything, not even close. She kissed him, tasted smoke and sweat and desperation. When they broke apart, the cabin stood untouched in the distance. The horses were safe. They were alive. What do we do now? She asked. Elijah looked at the burning remains of his barn. His jaw set. We rebuild, and we make sure Virgil Simmons never hurts anyone again. They stood together in the dying firelight. They'd lost so much, but they still had each other, and in that moment, it was enough. The smell of ash clung to everything. Clara woke the next morning with it in her hair, her clothes, her skin. Beside her, Elijah was already gone from the bed. She found him outside, standing where the barn used to be. Nothing remained but charred timber and smoldering ruins. She came up behind him, didn't speak, just slipped her hand into his. Pa built this barn, he said quietly. Took him 3 summers. I helped haul the wood when I was 12. Thought my arms would fall off. I'm sorry. Don't be. He turned to face her. His eyes were red-rimmed but dry. It's just wood, just nails. Virgil wanted to break me. He failed. How do you know? Because I'm still standing, because you're still here. He squeezed her hand. Because this ain't over yet. A wagon appeared on the ridge, then another, and another. Clara tensed. Elijah. Easy. He shaded his eyes against the morning sun. That's Tom Henderson's rig, and the millers behind him. 3 wagons rolled into the yard. Tom Henderson climbed down first, a big man with a weathered face and hands like shovels. Heard what happened, Tom said. Whole town's talking. Imagine they are. Most folks think Virgil's finally shown his true colors. Burning a man's barn. Tom shook his head. That ain't Christian. That ain't right. More people were climbing down from the wagons. Men with tools. Women with food baskets. Children carrying lumber. What is this? Clara asked. Tom's wife Martha stepped forward. This is neighbors helping neighbors, Mrs. Simmons. The way it ought to be. It's Mrs. Dawson now, Clara said without thinking, then caught herself, felt heat rise to her cheeks. Elijah stared at her. I didn't, that's not... Dawson, he repeated slowly. A smile tugged at his mouth. That how it is? I spoke without thinking. Clara. He caught her hands. Is that what you want? She looked at him. At this man who had lost everything and still stood tall. Who had fought for her when no one else would. Who made her feel like she was worth fighting for. Yes, she whispered. That's what I want. He kissed her. Right there in front of everyone. Tom Henderson whooped. Martha dabbed her eyes. Someone started clapping. When they broke apart, Clara was crying and laughing at the same time. Well then, Elijah said, guess we better build that barn so we got somewhere to have the wedding. The work began. Clara had never seen anything like it. 20 people working together raising walls where ashes had been. The sound of hammers rang out across the valley. Children ran errands. Women kept coffee hot and food coming. By noon, the frame was up. By sunset, the walls were standing. Not finished, not complete, but rising. Proof that destruction wasn't the end. That night, Clara sat on the porch with Ruth Perkins. The older woman had come with the others, worked alongside them all day. Why did you come? Clara asked. Ruth was quiet for a moment. Because I was a coward 3 years ago. Watched Edna Walsh get destroyed and did nothing. Told myself it wasn't my business. Her voice cracked. She wrote me once, you know, after she left. Said she was in California. Said she'd found some peace. That's good. Is it? She shouldn't have had to run. Shouldn't have had to give up everything because one man decided to torment her. Ruth turned to Clara. When I heard Virgil was doing it again, I knew I couldn't stay silent. Not this time. You saved me. At that meeting. When you spoke up. I told the truth, that's all. Ruth took Clara's hand. But you saved yourself, dear. You ran when running was the only option. Then you came back and fought when fighting became possible. That took courage. I don't think you even know you have. Clara felt tears threatening again. Does it get easier? Knowing people still talk. Some of them always will. Some folks would rather believe lies than admit they were fooled. Ruth smiled sadly. But the ones who matter, they'll see the truth. Give them time. The next morning, Sheriff Dawkins rode out. Clara saw him coming, and her stomach dropped. Elijah moved to stand beside her rifle. Not quite raised, but not quite lowered either. Sheriff? Mr. Garrett, Mrs. Simmons. Dawkins dismounted slowly, hands visible. I ain't here for trouble. Then why are you here? Came to tell you personally. Virgil Simmons confessed this morning. Clara's legs went weak. Confessed? To the forgery. The land documents Garrett mentioned, we found them. Clear as day. Virgil's signature on papers dated after Daniel's death claiming property that wasn't his. What about the barn? Elijah demanded. What about Emmett? Emmett Holloway's in custody. Turned on Virgil the moment we put pressure on him. Sang like a bird about everything, the barn, the threats, all of it. Dawkins shifted uncomfortably. There's more. Emmett says Virgil's been running this scheme for years. Not just Edna Walsh. There were others. Women he targeted, pressured, destroyed when they wouldn't comply. Clara felt sick. How many? At least 4 that we know of, maybe more. Dawkins met her eyes. You're the first one who fought back, Mrs. Simmons. The first one who won. She didn't feel like she'd won. She felt hollowed out. What happens to Virgil now? Trial. Probably prison. The forgery alone carries a 10-year sentence. Add in the arson, the intimidation, the rest of it. Dawkins shrugged. He ain't walking free anytime soon. After the sheriff left, Clara walked to the edge of the property, stood staring at nothing. Elijah found her there an hour later. You all right? I don't know. She wrapped her arms around herself. I thought I'd feel different when it was over, when Virgil couldn't hurt me anymore. What do you feel? Empty. tired, sad. She laughed bitterly. 4 women, Elijah. At least 4 women he destroyed before me. And nobody stopped him. Nobody even tried. You stopped him. Too late for them. Too late for Edna. Too late for Clara. He turned her to face him. You can't carry guilt that ain't yours. Virgil made choices. Virgil hurt people. That's on him, not on you. But if someone had spoken up sooner, if, that word'll drive you crazy if you let it. He cupped her face. You're here. You're alive. You're standing on your own 2 feet. That's not nothing. That's everything. She leaned into him. Let him hold her. I don't know how to stop being angry, she admitted. Then don't. Be angry. Rage at the injustice of it. But don't let it eat you alive. He kissed the top of her head. You got a choice now. First real choice you've had in months. What do you want to do with it? Clara thought about it. Really thought. I want to build something, she said finally. Something good. Something that proves Virgil didn't win no matter how much he took from me. What kind of something? She pulled back, looked at him. I want to help them. The other women. The ones who come after me. Her voice strengthened. I want there to be somewhere they can go. Someone who'll believe them. Elijah nodded slowly. That's a good something. You think it's possible. I think you just faced down the most powerful man in the county and won. I think possible is whatever you decide it is. A week later, Virgil Simmons went to trial. Clara testified. Told her story in front of a packed courtroom. Her voice shook at first, but steadied as she went. She looked Virgil in the eye and didn't flinch. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Without his power and his connections, he was just a petty, vicious man who preyed on the vulnerable. Ruth testified too. And 2 of the other women Emmett had named, one had come all the way from Austin when she heard. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty, on all counts. 12 years in prison, maybe more depending on what else came out. Clara watched them lead Virgil away in chains. He turned at the last moment, found her face in the crowd. Pure hatred burned in his eyes. She didn't look away. After court, people she didn't even know approached her, shook her hand, thanked her for her courage. A few didn't. A few turned their backs, still convinced she was the wicked one, still loyal to Virgil's memory. Clara didn't care anymore. She'd stopped needing everyone to believe her. She believed herself. That was enough. That night, Elijah took her to the bluff overlooking his property. Their property now, she supposed. The barn stood half-finished below pale wood gleaming in the moonlight. I brought you something. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Clara's heart stuttered. Elijah. It was my mother's. He opened the box. Inside sat a simple gold band worn smooth by years of wear. She told me before she died, give this to someone worthy, someone who makes you want to be better than you are. Clara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. You make me want to be better, Clara. You make me remember why getting up in the morning matters. He took her hand. I know we've only known each other a few weeks. I know it's too fast by any reasonable measure, but I stopped being reasonable the night I pulled you out of that flood. Elijah. You don't have to answer now. Don't have to answer ever if you don't want. But I need you to know whatever you decide, wherever you go, you changed me. You saved me as much as I saved you. She looked at the ring, at his face, at the life stretching out before them, uncertain and terrifying and full of possibility. Yes, she whispered. Yes, what? Yes, I'll marry you. She laughed through tears. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll build something with you. Yes, to all of it. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. Then he kissed her, and Clara felt something she'd thought she'd never feel again. Hope. The wedding was small. Just the Hendersons and the Millers and Ruth and a handful of others who'd become friends in the weeks since the trial. Amos Winslow performed the ceremony he'd ridden out from town when he said he wanted to make amends for not seeing Virgil's truth sooner. Clara wore Elijah's mother's dress altered to fit. The silver cross hung at her throat. In her hands, she carried wildflowers from the field, the same field where Nora used to pick them according to Elijah. "Dearly beloved," Amos began. Clara barely heard the words. She was too busy looking at Elijah, at the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, at the calluses on his hands earned through honest work, at the man who'd seen her at her worst and loved her anyway. "Do you, Clara Simmons, take this man?" "Yes." Too fast. She heard someone chuckle. Amos smiled. "I haven't finished the question yet." "Sorry." "Yes, whatever the question is. Yes." Elijah laughed. Actually laughed, a sound she'd rarely heard from him. "And do you, Elijah Garrett, take this woman?" "Yes." "I haven't finished either." "Don't need to. Answer's the same." Amos sighed dramatically. Young people these days. No patience. He closed his Bible. "Fine. By the power vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife. Kiss her already before she says yes to something else." Elijah did. Applause and cheers erupted around them. Someone fired a gun in celebration. Martha Henderson was crying openly. When they finally broke apart, Clara realized she was crying too. "Mrs. Garrett," Elijah murmured. "Mr. Garrett. Has a nice ring to it." "It does." She touched his face. "I love you. I don't think I've said that yet. Not properly. You've said it plenty, just not with words." He kissed her forehead. "I love you too. More than I knew I was capable of." The celebration lasted into the evening. Food appeared from nowhere, pies and casseroles and jars of preserves. Someone produced a fiddle. Dancing broke out on the newly finished barn floor. Clara watched it all with wonder. 2 months ago, she'd been ready to die in a flood, ready to let the water take her rather than face another day under Virgil's shadow. Now she was married, surrounded by people who cared about her, building a life she'd never imagined possible. Ruth found her standing apart from the dancers. Overwhelmed. A little. Clara laughed shakily. "A lot, actually." "That's normal. After everything you've been through, joy takes some getting used to." Ruth squeezed her arm. "But you'll adjust. Happiness isn't a punishment, dear. You're allowed to feel it." "Are you happy, Ruth? After everything?" The older woman considered the question. "I'm getting there. Speaking up at that meeting, facing what I'd been hiding from it helped. And watching you fight back helped too." She smiled. "You gave me courage I didn't know I had. I think we gave each other courage. Maybe that's how it works. Maybe courage isn't something you have alone. It's something you share." Elijah appeared slightly out of breath from dancing. "Mrs. Garrett, I believe this next dance is mine." "Is it now?" "Husband's privilege." He offered his hand. "May I?" Clara took it. They danced. Not well, neither of them really knew how, but it didn't matter. They moved together, made their own rhythm, and that was enough. "What are you thinking?" Elijah asked. "That I'm glad you found me. That night, in the barn." "I'm glad you were findable. Could have been anyone's barn. Was mine. Fate, maybe. Maybe." He spun her awkwardly. "Or maybe you're just stubborn enough to survive long enough for me to show up." "Could be both." "Could be." The music slowed. They swayed together. "The quilt," Clara said suddenly. "What about it? Your mother made it from pieces of everyone she loved, to keep them together even after they were gone." She looked up at him. "I want to add to it. Add to it. Pieces of us. Of this life we're building. So when our children look at it someday, they'll see the whole story, not just the ending." Elijah's eyes went bright. "Our children." If that's something you want, I didn't mean to assume." He kissed her quiet. "Yes," he murmured against her lips. God, yes. 100 times yes. They kept dancing long after the music stopped. The guests drifted away. The fire died down. Finally, they stood alone in the moonlight. Husband and wife, survivors both. Ready to go home, Mrs. Garrett? Clara looked at the cabin, at the new barn, at the land stretching out around them full of possibility. I'm already home, she said. Have been since the night you whispered you're safe here, and meant it. Elijah took her hand. They walked toward the cabin together. Behind them, the last embers of the celebration faded. Ahead, their life waited uncertain, challenging, and more beautiful than either had dared to hope. The lamp burned in the window. A beacon, a promise. Home. 6 months changed everything. Clara woke to the sound of hammering. She lay still for a moment, hand pressed against the swell of her belly, listening. Elijah was already up, already working. The man didn't know how to rest. She smiled and pushed herself upright. The cabin had grown since spring. A new room off the back for the baby. A proper kitchen with a cast iron stove Ruth had helped them find. Curtains Clara had sewn herself blue and white, catching the morning light. Home. Really and truly home. She found Elijah on the roof of the barn replacing a shingle that had come loose in last week's wind. You'll break your neck, she called up. Haven't yet. The baby and I would prefer you come down in one piece. He grinned. Set down his hammer. Climbed down the ladder with the easy grace of a man who'd done it 1,000 times. The baby giving you trouble this morning. The baby is giving me heartburn. Clara rubbed her stomach. And kicks. Lots of kicks. Elijah placed his hand over hers. His face softened. Strong one. Gets it from both of us. They stood like that for a moment, hands intertwined over the life growing inside her. Clara still couldn't quite believe it. After everything, the running, the fear, the flames, this. A husband, a home, a child on the way. I dreamed about Nora last night, Elijah said quietly. Clara looked up at him. He rarely mentioned his sister anymore. Not because the wound had healed, but because some pains lived too deep for everyday words. What was she doing in the dream? Laughing, the way she used to. His voice roughened. She was sitting by the creek picking wildflowers, looked up at me and said, "About time, Eli. About time." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. She'd be happy for you. I think she would. He cleared his throat. I think maybe she sent you. Sounds crazy, I know. It doesn't sound crazy. Ma used to say there's no such thing as coincidence. Just God's fingerprints where we're too blind to see. He touched her face. I was blind for a long time, Clara. Then you showed up in my barn, half drowned and fighting, and I could see again. She kissed him, soft, tender. I love you. I love you too. He pulled back, mock serious. Now stop distracting me. Roof won't fix itself. Impossible, man. You married me. Temporary insanity. He laughed and climbed back up the ladder. Clara watched him work, heart full to bursting. 6 months. A lifetime. The letter arrived that afternoon. Clara was kneading bread when Elijah came in, face troubled. He held an envelope like it might bite him. What is it? From the prison in Austin, where they're holding Virgil. Clara's hand stilled. The name sent ice through her veins even now. What does it say? Haven't opened it yet. Addressed to you. She wiped her hands on her apron, took the envelope. Her name stared back at her in unfamiliar handwriting, not Virgil's, someone official. She tore it open. Read. The paper fell from her fingers. Clara. Clara, what is it? He's dead. Her voice came from far away. Virgil's dead. Killed in a fight with another prisoner 3 days ago. Elijah caught her as her knees buckled, led her to a chair. Easy. Breathe. He's dead. He's actually dead. She didn't know what she felt. Relief, grief. Some twisted combination of both. The man who'd tormented her, who'd tried to destroy her, who'd burned everything Elijah had built, he was gone. Forever. Are you all right? I don't know. She laughed weakly. I don't know what I thought I'd feel. You don't have to feel anything specific. Whatever comes up, that's what you feel. I'm glad he can't hurt anyone else. Is that terrible? Being glad someone's dead? It's honest. Elijah knelt beside her. Virgil Simmons made choices. Hurt people. The consequences finally caught up with him. You didn't cause that. You're just living in the aftermath. Clara nodded slowly, drew a shaky breath. It's really over now. Completely over. Yeah, it is. She looked at the letter again, at the official seal, at the cold, bureaucratic language that reduced a man's entire existence to a few lines of text. Then she stood, walked to the stove, fed the letter to the flames. What are you doing? Letting go. She watched it burn. He took up enough space in my head. No more. Elijah came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her. That's my girl. They watched the paper curl and blacken and disappear. When nothing remained but ash, Clara turned in his arms. Let's finish that bread. I'm starving. He laughed, kissed her forehead. Yes, ma'am. Ruth came for supper that evening. She'd become a regular visitor over the past months, almost family, really. She and Clara had grown close in a way neither had expected. Two widows who'd faced the same monster and survived. Heard about Virgil, Ruth said over coffee. News travels fast. How do you feel about it? Honestly, I don't feel much of anything. Ruth stirred her cup. Thought I'd be relieved. Thought I'd celebrate. But mostly I just feel tired. I felt the same way. Empty. Maybe that's the best we can hope for. After everything he did, maybe numbness is its own kind of peace. Clara considered this. I burned the letter, the one from the prison. Good. Didn't even keep it. Just watched it turn to ash and felt nothing. Just nothing. Ruth reached across the table, took Clara's hand. That's healing, dear. When someone stops having power over you, even in death, that's when you know you're free. Do you feel free? Getting there. Some days more than others. Ruth smiled. But I've got good company on the journey. That helps. Elijah appeared in the doorway. More coffee, Ruth got plenty. I should be heading home. Getting dark. Stay the night. Storm's coming. I can feel it in my knee. Clara looked up sharply. Storm. Just rain, most likely. Nothing like June. He caught her expression. Hey, it's all right. I know it's all right. She forced a smile. Old habits. Storms don't mean anything, Clara, just weather. But her heart was racing anyway. 6 months and she still couldn't hear thunder without flinching. Still couldn't watch rainfall without remembering that night. The flood, the barn, Virgil's men. Ruth was watching her carefully. I'll stay, the older woman said. Keep Clara company while you menfolk do whatever menfolk do during storms. I know you don't need, but I'd like to. Humor an old woman. Clara felt something loosen in her chest. All right. Thank you. The storm rolled in around midnight. Clara lay awake listening. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Rain began to patter against the roof gently at first, then harder. Beside her, Elijah stirred. You're awake. Can't sleep. The storm. The memories. Everything. She turned to face him. I hate that I'm still afraid. After everything, after winning, I still hear thunder, and my whole body goes cold. Trauma doesn't work on a schedule, Clara. It don't care that you won. It don't care that you're safe. It just shows up when it feels like it. Will it ever stop? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe it'll just get quieter. He pulled her closer. But you don't have to face it alone. That's the difference now. Is it? What do you mean? I mean. She struggled to find words. That night in the barn, when you found me, I'd given up. Completely. I was ready to let the flood take me because I couldn't imagine any other option. I know. But you gave me another option. You looked at me soaking wet, half crazy with fever, and you saw something worth saving. Her voice cracked. Why, I still don't understand why. Elijah was quiet for a long moment. Because you looked at me like I was a person, not a hermit, not a failure, not the man who let his sister die. He stroked her hair. Because when I saw you in that barn, I saw myself, broken, lost, ready to give up. And I thought if I can save her, maybe I can save what's left of me too. So we saved each other. Yeah, reckon we did. The thunder rolled closer. Clara pressed her face against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, real. I'm still scared, she whispered. I know. But I'm less scared than I was 6 months ago. Progress. Progress. She smiled against his skin. I'll take it. They lay like that until the storm passed. When Clara finally slept, her dreams were calm. The quilt was finished in the morning. Clara had been working on it for months, adding pieces to Elijah's mother's creation. Scraps of the dress she'd worn when she arrived. A square of Elijah's old shirt. A patch from Ruth's apron. Even a piece of the curtain that had hung in the old cabin before the fire. Now it spread across their bed, a patchwork of old and new, loss and love, grief and hope. Grief. It's beautiful, Ruth said, running her fingers over the stitches. Sarah would have loved this. You knew his mother. Knew of her. She was a legend in these parts, best seamstress in 3 counties. People came from miles around for her quilts. Ruth traced a faded blue square. This was Nora's dress. She wore it to the church social the year before she died. Clara felt tears threatening. I didn't know. How could you? The dead only live in the memories of those who knew them. Ruth looked up. But you've given them new life. Added your story to theirs. That's what Sarah wanted for the quilt to keep growing. To carry more love than one lifetime could hold. Do you think she'd approve of me, of this? I think she'd be dancing in heaven, dear. Her son is happy for the first time in years. Her quilt is being loved and used and added to. Her legacy is continuing through you. Ruth squeezed her hand. Yes, she'd approve. Elijah appeared in the doorway. Ladies, I've got something to show you. He led them outside, to the garden Clara had planted that spring, to the small wooden cross that stood at the edge of the property. Clara had never asked about it. Some things didn't need questions. Nora's marker, Elijah said quietly. And Ma's is next to it, and Pa's beyond that. I know. What you don't know. He stepped aside, revealed a 4th marker, smaller, fresh. Is this? Clara read the words carved into the wood for those who came before those who come after, and those who find home along the way. It's for all of them, Elijah said. Edna Walsh, the other women Virgil hurt. Anyone who needs a place to remember, they're not alone. He turned to Clara. I thought if we're going to help others like you wanted, they should have somewhere to go. Somewhere that says someone remembers. Someone cares. Clara couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. It's just wood, Elijah continued, suddenly uncertain. Just a marker. If you don't like... She threw her arms around him, held him so tight she could feel his heart pounding against her chest. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Yeah. Ruth was crying quietly behind them. When Clara finally let go of Elijah, she pulled the older woman into the embrace. They stood like that, the 3 of them in the morning light, united by loss and love and the stubborn refusal to give up. The baby came early. 2 weeks before Clara expected in the middle of the night. She woke to cramps that built into something fiercer, something undeniable. "Elijah!" She shook him. "Elijah, wake up!" He was alert instantly. "What is it?" "The baby. It's coming." Everything after that was a blur. Elijah rode for Ruth. Ruth rode for the midwife in town. Clara breathed and pushed and screamed and prayed. It took 12 hours. 12 hours of pain and fear and wondering if she'd survive. 12 hours of Elijah holding her hand, refusing to leave, telling her she could do this. And then a cry. Small, fierce. The most beautiful sound Clara had ever heard. "A girl," the midwife announced. "Healthy, strong lungs on her." Clara reached for her daughter, held her against her chest, looked into that tiny scrunched-up face. "Hello?" she whispered. "Hello, little one." Elijah was crying. She'd never seen him cry before, not even when he talked about Nora. But now tears streamed down his face, and he made no effort to hide them. "She's perfect," he choked out. "Clara, she's perfect." "She is." "What do we call her?" Clara had thought about this for months, considered dozens of names. But now, looking at her daughter, only one seemed right. "Sarah," she said, "after your mother, and Ruth, her middle name, should be Ruth." Elijah made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Sarah Ruth Garrett." "Sarah Ruth Garrett." Clara smiled through her own tears. "Welcome to the world, sweetheart. You've got a lot of people who love you already." They brought Sarah home the next day. The cabin felt different with a baby in it. Louder, fuller, more alive than it had ever been. Clara sat by the window nursing her daughter, watching the afternoon light change. Elijah sat nearby carving something small, a toy maybe, for when Sarah was older. Ruth had gone home but promised to return tomorrow. And the next day. And the day after that. "I never imagined this," Clara said quietly. Elijah looked up. "Imagined what?" "Any of it. A husband, a home, a child." She stroked Sarah's downy head. "That night in the flood, I thought I was dying. Thought maybe that was mercy. But this..." She gestured at the cabin, at him, at the baby in her arms. "This is mercy. Real mercy. You earned it." "Did I? Sometimes I feel like I just got lucky. Like fate decided to give me a break for once." Fate had nothing to do with it. Elijah set down his carving, moved to kneel beside her. "You survived. You fought. You refused to give up even when everything in you wanted to. That's not luck, Clara. That's strength." "I don't feel strong." "The strongest people never do." Sarah made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like a protest. Clara adjusted her position, and the baby settled. "She's going to have a good life," Clara said. "Different from ours. She won't have to fight the way we did. Maybe. Or maybe she'll have her own battles, but she won't face them alone. That's the difference we can give her. That's all I want, for her to know she's not alone, to know she's loved, to know her worth doesn't depend on what anyone else thinks of her. She'll know. We'll make sure of it." Clara looked at her husband, at this man who had pulled her from darkness and held her while she learned to stand again. "Thank you," she said. "For what? For seeing me, that first night, for looking past the fever and the fear and the mud and seeing someone worth saving." Her voice trembled. "No one had looked at me like that in years, maybe ever." "I could say the same to you." He touched her face. "You saw me too, Clara. Saw past the walls and the silence and the guilt. Saw the man I could be instead of the failure I thought I was. You were never a failure. Neither were you." They sat in comfortable silence. The baby slept. The sun moved across the floor. Then Clara heard it. Distant thunder. The smell of coming rain. Her body tensed automatically. Old fear deep as bone. Elijah noticed. Of course he noticed. "Clara, I'm all right." She forced herself to breathe. "I'm all right. It's just weather." "You want to go inside?" She looked at the gathering clouds, felt the old panic rise and deliberately pushed it down. No, I want to stay here. I want to watch it come. Elijah sat beside her, took her hand. Together, they watched the storm approach. The rain came soft at first, then harder. Thunder rolled across the hills. Lightning flickered in the distance. Clara's heart raced. Her palms sweated. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to escape. But she didn't move. She sat with her daughter in her arms and her husband at her side and watched the storm pass over them, through them, around them. And when it was done, when the last thunder faded and the rain slowed to a gentle patter, she was still there, still standing, still whole. "You did it," Elijah murmured. "We did it." She leaned into him. Together. Sarah stirred, yawned, went back to sleep. The storm moved on. The world kept turning. And Clara Garrett, once Clara Simmons, once a widow running from a monster, once a woman ready to die in a flood, sat in her home with her family and felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. Not the absence of pain. Not the end of struggle. Just a quiet certainty that whatever came next, she could face it. Because she was not alone. Because she was loved. Because she had built this life with her own two hands against all odds, and no one could take it from her. The lamp still burned in the window that night. Not because anyone was lost, not because anyone was afraid, but because some lights are meant to keep burning. Some beacons exist not to guide the lost home, but to remind those already home that they belong there. Clara belonged. Finally and forever and completely, she was home.